Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tube. All welcome again to all of you, all of the participants. Uh, Thank you. Motivation, value addition, and continuous learning. I think it should inspire all of us, but particularly those who are younger. He has 34 plus years of experience, work experience in industry. Interesting part is more than 22 years he has been in CEO or MD of various MNCs like Eaton, Dressler Wall, and request you to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me start by thanking Mr. Pradeep Tupe from Pune Management Association. I think Dr. Anil Keskar is not there. Of course, him plus, Mr. Pramod Wadikar for his kind words from PDPC. I think first, thank you for choosing this very apt topic for the current, time or the current period, and also having given me the opportunity to, present to this segment of MSMEs, probably which will benefit them, at large. So let me put on the presentation and jump onto it straight away. The presentation now. Good. Let's get on to the presentation. See, this is demystifying I 4.0 for MSMEs. Now, of course, the first slide is basically to give some overview or a recall of what this is about. I'm not going to go detail into this. As all of us know, the first generation or the industry first revolution was basically from steam and water, followed with electricity, then followed by the automation, then came the information technology. Now, let me just have a quick recap on this, fourth generation, what we call information technology, because this, will carry us forward for the next possibly 30 minutes into the session. You see, when the automation happened in that era, they were all in silos. Then these automated machines got connected together or networked together, and the connection, was possible through the internet technology. And of course, once the connected, machines came about, yielded into connected factories. Once the factories are connected, there were a large amount of data, and obviously the economics of storage came about, and then the cloud was used. And since a large amount of data was available, with the age-old statistics, you could do some data analytics, find out the pattern, find out, various other methodology of analytics. And then you could come to some conclusion in terms of the predictability or in terms of prospective, or in terms of proactiveness for a decision making. And that intelligence built into is what we call as an artificial intelligence. So this section of what you are seeing at the fourth generation or I 4.0 is, actually a combination of all this. Now, you see, most of us, must have had a lot of exposure into a lot of seminars, webinars, conferences on I 4.0. And, most of them, I will call most of them, not all of them, will throw a lot of jargons, will throw a lot of, very high overview and a very wide depth. Thus giving you something like this, Internet of Things, smart sensors, big data analytics, 3D printing, augmented reality, cloud, virtual reality, all this stuff. And of course, the smart factory. But see, what we are trying to address in this, webinar is that how can it be useful to an MSME? What is that they can benefit from this type of, very talked about a technology, always in the high end of it. So the idea is the demystification is actually going to make this system clear for how an MSME can use it. Now, you see, I'm going to, this is a very simple, configuration of, I put as a manufacturing. Similar can be done for a service or, trading industry in MSME. So you have suppliers, you have logistics, you have the information that is flowing between them, you have a manufacturing value chain, then you have sales and marketing, design development, delivery, and customers. Now, this is an age-old, configuration. This is not something new to us. But what happened is that when the computer started coming in, you wanted to connect all these to computer system. Once this was to be done, we all know that the world outside is analog and the computer is digital, so you need some form of an interface between them. So when you started connecting the outside world into the computer system, you wanted to convert that analog into digital. Thus is the word of digitization. Now I'm going to use not more than these three words for you to understand, that's all. So digitization means is actually conversion of the analog, whatever data, that configuration you have, into a digital form, so that it can be used as an input to the computer system. Next is, after having done, you must get some benefit out of this digitization process, like efficiency in a business or better revenue and things like this. This is what we call digitalization process. Okay, digitalization. Of course, last is, using analytics, diagnostics, and then making a complete business model with customer. All this blah blah high-end experience is what we call digital transformation. Now you see, this is what the basic is about: digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. Now most of them in a presentation will start from digital transformation, talk of huge aspects of it, and say 3D printing, virtual reality, and then show a lot of videos. And then when it comes to digitalization, you actually lose the focus for MSMEs. So our focus today is going to be seeing as how are we going to address this factor of three stages, and what are we going to touch. That is what we are going to talk on. Of course, as I put it here, the advantage of digital transformation, people call it digital transformation, digital lens, and so many, jargons they use. But all this idea is to empower your employees, engage your customers better, optimize the operations, and transform the product. There is nothing else that needs to be achieved. But let us see how this is done. Now, let's remove all this stuff. This is a basic configuration we have. Now, assuming this is a basic configuration, which we all know of it. And what is the fundamental objective of any business? Either it is this configuration is maybe for 1 lakh turnover or 1 lakh crore turnover, is immaterial. Probably you will have a different scaling, and you will have a different, probably subdivisions within the functions. Let's leave it. But this is a configuration. What is the objective of the configuration? Is very simple. You want to take the revenue up and you want to take the cost down, nothing else. Now, this is the simple that has been going on for, this is not something magic, or this is not something completely secret. Many organizations focus on revenue, and if the revenue is not coming up, they will start focusing on cost and expenses. Now let's look at it like this. Now, why is it that if this is so simple, that many of them are not able to achieve this? No, all of them are having a problem. Now, this is where I'm going to throw some, ideas for you to think through. You see, the biggest problem today is decision making to achieve this revenue, profit, or cost. Is decision making a real problem with our people? Either it is MSMEs or big people. No, everybody is good in decision making. Believe me, you don't need an external consultant for decision making. The problem with our people, why they are not able to make decision, is what I'm going to give you a very simple example now. Let us say that we are standing in a traffic signal. Okay, now in order to know that when it will turn green, what happens is, if you are familiar with the environment there, you will know from the intersection movement that which is going to come for you next. You can be prepared. Assuming you are in a different geography, you never know it. You have to wait for it. You have to always be, alert to see. Or if you are not able to see the traffic signal in many times, you will have to see the front fellow whether it is moving or not. You see, this is a very simple example to know what the decision making is. So to make the decision, you need to go so many things. But see what happens when you have a timer. It's very simple. Whether you are in a new place or an old place, at whatever point of time you have come to the signal, you clearly know when are you going to leave. You see how the decision making has changed with the data. So this is very simple example to tell you, it is not the decision making that's a problem for MSMEs. It is the data that is a problem for MSMEs in making the decision. Now, what is this data is what I call it as, I call it as craft data. Craft data is something where it is, the moment you have this data with you, every one of you, either in small business or big business, will be able to make good decisions, because decision making capability I would not say is perfect with the good data, but it will be rather very, very different and very better with the good data. That is what is going to be focused today for MSMEs to see how you can use I 4.0 in a very cost-effective way to get good data to make your own decisions. This is what we are going to talk basically on demystification. So the idea is we are going to use I 4.0 to get to data making. So now what we are talking is this: we are not talking of digital transformation. We are not going to go on a big scale. We are only going to talk on see how you can digitize and digitalize and get benefit. That's all we are going to talk. We are not going to talk on jargons. We are not going to talk on any big aspects of big presentations as you would see in many places. Now look at it. This is the sum and substance of demystification. What are we going to do for MSMEs? We are going to use data. That means we are going to use the technology what we have in order to create valuable craft data for you as an MSME, so that you will be able to make correct decisions to solve the priority issues. This is important. You need data for priority issues, what you have in your place, which will come to that now. And once you have data and you have decisions made by you, or you can always take help from outside, in terms of experience, in order to make this decision, doesn't matter. But the moment you have data, you are going to enter the correct decision scenario, which will make you happy customers. So this is a demystification process, what we are going to see now. Now, the next step is what is going to be crucial, is what I'm going to share with you, the roadmap of doing it. Now, what is this ABCDE? This is nothing. This is just to make you remember the sequence. That's all. It is nothing, hard and fast about it. Now, let us see. You have the same configuration what we spoke before. It could be, taken for a service organization or trading organization or anything. But this is a simple configuration of you have an input, you have some process, and you have an output. Now, let's look at what is A. A is first assess your critical to business segment. Now, what is the segment I'm talking about? It could be suppliers, it could be logistics, it could be your value chain, either in terms of service, what you do, in terms of manufacturing, what you do, in terms of delivery, sales, design, development, customers, anything. That segment which is critical to you is what you need to assess. Because I know all these things cannot be bad at the same time. There are something which is critically bad. So that segment, which is that segment, is what you need to assess, because you will know it by the back of your hand that what is this critical to business, I call this critical to business segment, that you need to understand. Then you need to bring out the constraint to strengthen. I'll give you a simple example on this so that you can easily understand. Now see, what I'm talking on the constraint is what you see down below, in terms of suppliers, various constraints, logistics, maybe in manufacturing, you have maintenance, packaging, production, energies, tools and molds, maybe in customers, you have service, feedback, then delivery in terms of tracking. There are so many things that can happen in a specific segment. No, I'm going to take a simple example and walk you through. I am taking an example, say manufacturing is my critical to business because I'm not able to deliver. My delivery is not happening. So my thing is manufacturing is my critical to business segment. In that, my core area, let us say, is my production. That means I'm not able to produce. Am I using the machine correctly? Am I getting the output is what my constraint is. Okay, I'm just taking an example. You can take anything. C is where you should have a consulting partner at this point. Now, why do we have it as C, not in the first? Now, this is what is coming out of my experience. You see, I'm not blaming anybody. See, normally when you have a consultant right in the beginning, he tries to push his strength on your area, which you do not want. So you need to assess what is critical to your business segment and what is that core area that you need to strengthen. You need to decide first, and then have a consulting partner. And this consulting partner must be a domain specialist first, and then having technology. Not that he's a technology specialist and you have domains very small. Please understand that it must be a domain expertise first with the technology. In this case, probably with the permission of PMA and PDPC, I would say, thank both of them to have given the opportunity for, any MSME here. So that, the opportunity in the sense that they would be willing to do probably, free consultation or mentoring or whatever for any MSME, maybe, one or two subject to their, pickup list. to consult them or in terms of advise them in terms of this model what we are talking. So that is a consulting partner I'm talking of. You must be clear that they have a domain expertise. Is because in my experience, I've seen a lot of IT guys into this. They may not even visit the service or other industries for MSME what we are talking of. So this is the one. Then you define the deliverables in that area. Then engage yourself into execution. Now define the deliverables. Now here again, I'm going to give you an example. Say I've now decided my critical to business segment is manufacturing. I have delivery issue. I'm not able to deliver to customers. So production and machine utilization is my core area. I must strengthen. Then I say that deliverable or that define of KPI or whatever you call is the OEE, which is the overall equipment effectiveness, is what I want to monitor, because I want to know whether I'm able to get the production output. You see, this is how you define the entire criticality or the business issue, or prioritize what is required in your own system. Now, once you have this A, B, C, D, E done, then I'm going to walk you through a real life example of how we have achieved. Now, this is.
Are we able to ask question in between, or shall we wait till the end? Sorry.
Okay. See the manufacturing. So we are talking of OEE, which is what I've given an example, and I'm not going through the technicalities of it, which we know is A, P, Q, and U. And U is actually the planned time by the all time, so that you get that proportion. T, I'm not going into the technicalities of it. But now let us see. Now you have identified this OEE. Now you sit with a consultant or somebody. What they will tell you immediately. I've got a box. I've got this hardware connection. I will connect it to your machine. I will do this. I will get all this done. No, I'm not telling no to this. Now, please understand, what you must understand is you must go down to the basics of what you need. You need data from the machine first. How are you taking data? Which I'm going to show you. Most of them take this data on a paper, which is fed on the machine. So whenever you see something like this, what I would say is, do not get on to immediately connecting things to the machine, get everything done up. Please. You do that, but go on a phase manner. So now you see on the slide, I'm going to remove this SCADA, sensor, whatever is connected to the machine. I'm going to remove it now. Then I'm going to have basic data input. What operator is doing is what I want to capture digitally and use. That is what I'm going to show you as the starting point of using I 4.0 for a success in the MSME system. So this is what I call as how you actually drill down with your problem with the help of consulting partners, and then find out a solution. Now, what I'm going to do is, of course, this is a real life SME place. I'm showing you because this is where we have done, and benefits can come, which now you can see it when I go through the actual implementation. How has it been done? Now look, now you see, this is a simple system in an SME or MSME, that they have this delivery problem. So they want to do the OE. Now, how is it done? This is a KPI. You have availability, productivity, quality. They use paper to enter this data. And suppose you have say 5 machines. You have say 2 shifts or 3 shifts running. You have about 15 papers generated on the machines. Somebody collects this sheet, it could be a supervisor or somebody, and it is taken and entered into an Excel sheet on a computer. And then somebody analyzes the data. It could be a manager or the supervisor or the owner himself. And then for next day morning, he wants this data for understanding what has been the issue. This is a natural, normal requirement in any organization for its running, either big or small. But you see, the problem that happens is this. Some, customers like a press shop or somebody, they want every hour data. The operator has to enter, they enter on a paper, or somebody wants every 2 hours. Now, you see, what happens is, I'm talking about the correctness of the data. What does correctness means is, normally, if you have to enter every hour, we all know that it's difficult for operator to enter every hour. So he will average it maybe, twice or thrice before going to lunch, and then probably after coming back. So you have correctness issue on the data itself. Then secondly, what you have is errors, because somebody collects the data and enters into Excel, you already have errors that is coming up on time. And third, of course, we all know it is the priority issue on the floor, that that data which is collected on the paper may not be entered on the same day into Excel. And once there is a backlog, and you know there are 20 sheets, 40 sheets backlog, it's difficult to be entered and you will never get the data on time. This is a normal problem which exists in not only in MSMEs, even in big companies, this exists. Now, how can we address this? I'm talking about MSMEs. Now, the idea is how can we address this very critically with the MSMEs? This is what I'm going to talk now. It's very simple. Now, the entire paper is taken off and a tab is given to enter the data. It's very simple. The operators, nowadays are completely clear with how to operate the mobile. So there is no training required. Simple, whatever data is entered on the paper is entered on a tab, nothing more. What happens to collecting sheets? Does not exist anymore. Do we need to enter into Excel? Not required. Do we need to analyze the data in terms of this? Not required. What happens is a simple system like this, the live data is entered back, into simple Excel sheet, and Excel sheet will give out your data, or it can be a software. It's very simple system. The advantage in the system is you have correctness of data because your operator has to enter. If it is every hour, he has to enter on time. Otherwise, the system time will show different. Now, discipline starts setting in the people. There are no chances of errors as there is only one entry point at any point of time, and then the data is timely for the manager or the owner to see the data. So moment now you see this is what we are trying to. Does it going to cost money? It is, but it's very, very minuscule. You see, number of people we have really freed for doing more work. The idea is you have correct, this is what I call craft data available with you from the operator directly to you for your decision making process. The decision making with this data can never go wrong. This is the advantage of having a very simple system of monitoring OEE for using I4.0. So using a tab and then taking the data directly into the cloud and putting on the analytics at the back end is a very simple, cost-effective system that you can look at. You need not have very high-end jargons used on an MSME. This can give you a direct benefit in terms of what is happening to a machine, where is the problem. Now, in real life terms, once this data is analyzed, you will know, oh, my machine has been waiting for problem of power, problem of material, problem of air, problem of operator not coming. All these things becomes very easy. In fact, there are some cases we have found, you can find that it's an operator related issue. So maybe take him for training. Maybe you can find material related issue. So all this can come, very, very easily to you in terms of solution, because you have a solution, but you do not know what the problem is. This is going to give you direct access to your day-to-day problem. So this is how we are addressing the manufacturing issue. So simple, you have better decision making, you have quality output, and of course, I'm calling it as discipline for the operator to enter the data. Now you have various other manufacturing, you can look at maybe. You can look at predictive condition monitoring. You can look at safety. You can look at, you can have various constraints what you have. You can use this type of data collection. Very, very simple. The concept is the same. Since I have thrown the concept, you can determine the solution yourself in your own area, how you want to do this. Now, I'm going to give you another simple example. Say we all have these issues of, we have racks. We need to have a racks, we need to have a slot, we need to make it sure that the correct thing goes correctly. If new material comes, you need to have a new rack. Now I'm going to tell you, nothing of this sort is required. How do you do it? You see, any operator can place any material tool at any available location, and any operator can retrieve at any location, any material from any location without having to search for it. And also see, there is no skill required in the operator to search for the material. Now, either it is tools, molds, raw materials, or anything can be done this way in a very simple system. Otherwise, you will have to, ensure this goes there, and you need a skilled person to retrieve the tooling or mold or a press shop tool. Now, see, how does it work? It's very simple. Again, is having a simple mobile application where whatever the rack is available, he takes a material, puts that on the rack, and we can look at the system, in detail later for want of time. But very simple, he will enter the location into the system where he is keeping it. And once you put what you want, the system will tell you where the location is. So you see, it's very simple. Such a system can not only give you retrievability faster, errorless, but also it will save you a lot of space. You need not buy racks. Whenever something becomes old, remove it and you can use the racks, because the system can go anywhere. Now, these are all the systems that I'm sure you all know. These are all the systems which very big companies like Amazon is using. But this is something on a low technology. You can use it in your own press shop for searching tools, molds, or for raw materials or anything of that sort. So this is something which you can really think through and widen your scope of application if you know the concept. Next, I'm throwing one more idea for for MSMEs, because there are a lot of small. I've seen a lot of small contractors in the market. Now, what do these contractors do? They have small projects going on in many places. What do? Is they take job cards in each of the sites, and and a WhatsApp photo is taken and sent to the office, and the office now does a lot of updation in terms of what is the status of the project, what is the inventory available here, what's the inventory available here, and what tools have gone where. All these things go on. Now this is if there are more than 1-2 sites, the amount of complexity involves. But you see, it's very simple to solve this problem even for them. How? Now each of the sites, just as we saw earlier, can have job cards entered on their mobile application. Very simple system, no, very cost-effective system. Once it is done, everything gets in the backend, put. So the backend office knows what inventory status, what is available at which point of time in live mode. There is no data entry at the back office after the WhatsApp comes in, entering, and then consolidation. All this happens by itself now. This process is not a complicated one, as you will know, that is very simple. Just a mobile application sends the data back. Data at the back end will tell you what inventory is available at which location. If you want to move, you can move the inventory. What's the status of the project, you will know. How many people have come, how many manpower have come there. Is the manpower adequate? Shifting of manpower, shifting of resources, shifting of utilities, shifting of tools. All this becomes for a very small MSME person in a construction segment completely flexible, and it gives you a lot of benefit in terms of cost. So this is something which we can really look at. See, this is only limited by the imagination of what you can have. So this is something I want to talk on: digital project management for MSME in manufacturing, in the construction. Now, I want to talk on trading activity, or service activity, which is there. There are a lot of MSMEs who do on, toolings and consumables for manufacturing or any other industry. Now, it is left to them, because when they take this, they have to do a lot of work. Many of them are contract employees. They do a lot of work in collecting the data, how much is consumed, how much tooling is consumed, how much maybe different types of oils or whatever is the case is consumed on these machines. Everything as earlier is now done on a piece of paper on his notebook. He goes to the machine, he then writes on the machine, and then he takes WhatsApp, sends it back to the office. Now, suppose there are 50 machines. His time is done unproductively on doing all this work. You see, now the biggest change that can happen is very simple, that we are going to change what is gathering data simply on a mobile system. If that happens, then entire thing gets back as earlier. It's a very simple I4.0, where the data entered in the mobile gets back to the office. You can analyze what data is required into simple Excel system. Now, the advantage is these people who are, mostly in this type of management, the consumable management on daily basis, they are all contract employees and people who are basically, mobile people. Now, these people can have productive time in doing their jobs than doing this type of, collecting data, putting the data on paper, putting it on sheet, getting WhatsApp, sending it to the office. This can be compressed, especially in today's time, probably when, a manpower movement and things is going to be really, I would say not at risk, but in terms of constraint, these things can really come of a big help in terms of how you can effectively add more business at a lesser cost. So this is something which we can, really look at from this perspective. Now, this is what I spoke of, a simple mobile application where you can really use this to the advantage. And, last, I just want to touch upon this, where there are a lot of, MSME owners who wants to know exactly what's happening in their plant every day. Like I've just put this KPIs as orders, material, cash, rejection, shipment, but it can be anything. Now, you may be moving on a customer, you may be out of station for maybe 2-3 days. You do not know really what's happening. And many times what happens, you need to have somebody in the office, you call them up, they send email, you don't know where the email is, and then you call the people, find out what is happening and all this stuff. Instead of this, a simple system that can happen is you can have what we call as a dashboard to you in your own system. In your own way, you can do this. That you will know what is happening at any point of time. Before the person leaves your office, he will have this updated in your system. So you can have something like a gauge, this is like a dashboard on a car. You will know what is what. And whatever is red, you think you can call and ask. Otherwise, if it is green, just leave it. So you have your own time. People have their own time. The communication makes it, I would say, absolutely easy for you to really go ahead and make good of your time and the real value addition of your time, what you can do with this. Good. Now, this is what I mean by connected with business at all times, not through phone or email communication, but through some dedicated systems, which is really a cost-effective system, what we are talking of. Now, I hope this few examples of practicality of not really getting into jargons, but really an application-oriented system where you can, really use your ingenuity to know your constraint area and create what data you need for decision making. That will make you much better use of I 4.0 rather than going in for big jargons and investing huge amount of money. So I always, believe this. You must use this I 4.0 if you have to use it, not that you just want to use it to showcase. Never do that, because that's not going to make you any success. So the idea is use it effectively, use it the way you want. Don't worry about entire digital transformation, digital lens, what people are talking about. Restrict it to what your usage is, get benefit out of it, get the amount of business efficiency in terms of profit or loss, which you can be progressing on this. And then maybe after you use a simple tab for data input, then use a machine input, then use something more, then data analytics and artificial intelligence. Because you may attend a lot of seminars, but ensure that you start in a way where you see you start to get returns on what you do with respect to I 4.0. So I believe this I is basically I 4.0 can make a difference with you. So this is all what I have got. I think we just finished about exactly about 30 minutes. And I leave it for Mr. Pramod to start back with his.
Sir,
Samadhan, yes?
Yes, sir. Myself, Satish Goel.
Yes, sir. Satish Goel has a question.
Yes, Satish ji.
What happens when the operator makes some mistakes in entering data and this is not cross-checked by the supervisor?
See, this is my opinion. See, the data entry sanctity and integrity has to lie with the operator. Now, if the supervisors, if you put the supervisor to check data entry, then that's not a very healthy sign. So we need to really understand that, if operator has to enter the data must come from the operator and it is responsibility and ownership to do it. Two, at the back end, when the data comes in, we have checks and balances to see that if the operator has made a mistake. And then, we go back and correct with him. But it is my opinion that, we should not have somebody to check whether the data entry itself is correct or not. See, as he's doing it on paper, he's going to do it on the tab. Now, if it is something is happening wrong on the tab, if it is an intentional wrong, then you handle it differently. If it is something that the operator is not able to do it, I think we must train the operator and leave the ownership for the operator to collect his data. Because the idea is, we need to have operator independency on the way the data is to be collected. And then you need to ensure that adequate training is there. I think, in my opinion, it is not prudent to, spend some supervisor to supervise the data entry itself. That is my opinion, Satish ji.
Yes, sir, I agree to this. My point is this, if operator makes a mistake, as you said, there are some checkpoints into the system. So if this could be validated by somebody who would be sitting at the system or generating the report?
Yes, that can always be done. I agree with you. That can always be done, and that will always exist. The validity of data, the data integrity, all this will happen at the back end. No doubt, you're right. No doubt. But my only thought is you don't need a supervisor to do that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so, Satish, right? This is Pankaj here, okay? And first of all, I really thank you to Krishna sir and appreciate the way you put it, okay? Just to add my 2 cents here, right? In the industry 4.0, the data capturing is the first step and foremost step, right? there are different ways. With my little experience, I can say I'm working in IT consulting firm, and your ABCD methodology is highly appreciable, and the key part concept is the C, right? Choosing the right partner. I have seen many consultants who are just trying to sell their IT stuff, and they sell it, and people fail to use it, right? So
True.
adoption and the availability and getting the right information, attaching that to the right KPIs. Okay, that's the key here. Now coming back to your question, right? There in the next Industry 4.0, we do have something called IoT, right? IoT where machine will ask machine to capture the data and not to the human, right? But as an initial MSME start, so as I rightly said, you should go with the operator based data gathering, right? But in the next step, right, there are sensors, there are IoT based devices who can capture all the data without noticing any operator or anything, and pass it on that to the appropriate dashboard, and massage it, generate to put the necessary reports as well, right? So that can be definitely look forward. And Krishna sir, keep me straight if I'm deviating, right?
Yes. See, that is why if you see in my slide, I have already put, if you look at the manufacturing, I actually put sensors and, SCADA system along with the tab. So I said you start with the tab and then get on with, add-ons to the machine as well. So you're right. You can go it in steps, not get everything on one go. And that is actually a good recipe for failure, you know.
There is a question from Mr. Shailesh.
Yes,
How
sir.
machine data can be fetched if this is restricted by the OEM? Okay. How
Uh,
machine data can be fetched if that is restricted by the OEM?
Sir, just to tell you, of late, it's called the MT Connect. There is a definite protocol that is available, which is open, and it can be captured from the machine itself. Now, time has come that systems are going into open source, and these data from the machine, as you know, when the machine was run. See, there are certain things like machine stop and machine run data can be captured, but there are certain data like why was the machine down really cannot be captured to a very great degree. It still relies on the operator to enter the reason. So you're right. There are systems available. Many manufacturers are making it open. There is a protocol available called MT Connect where you can collect data. Samples, data sets are also available freely, openly from the people. So things have changed, and if you want to connect, you can actually connect. So there is no much restriction with many that is available as of today. So you can comfortably connect.
Right, sir. Right. Definitely. I've noted that answer.
Yes.
Actually, like in the current scenario where we have talked to different clients, because I myself is a part of a consulting. So, the major bottleneck comes around, the very right thing which you said, the job cards and everything has to start first. And in fact, before that also, we need to do some scenario analysis where the company is standing with respect to the maturity, whether they have the right data or whether they have the right approach of getting that. But the point here is once we move to the next stage where we have to talk to the machines, right? So there this bottleneck comes in. Although these open protocols like MQTT is available, but some of the machine owners like Schneider's or the other, all these big OEMs like ABB, Schneider, and all these have a very closed environment. So there we face a challenge, and then we have to rely on the inputs of these operators, right? So that's a bigger roadblock for us while implementing such technical solution. So that's
Very
why I
good.
thought of asking you that how we can bridge that, or anything is coming up in this direction.
See, the things are getting better as we go in ahead in time. But as you rightly said, there are some companies which are trying to hold it as close to their chest and not leave it around. On the other side, also you can see a lot of manufacturing people are not possibly highly tech savvy. So you open a machine and put some cable and plugs and things like this, and something else goes wrong. Probably is going to be difficult for people like you to justify that it is not your fault. Okay.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
So there are 2-3 things that we will have to really look at holistic picture before you open a panel and start connecting something, because that confidence is what you need to create with the customer to understand that This is something which is not going to hamper his machine. Tomorrow, after you connect, something else happens because of something else, but it's very difficult for operator and other people to believe that it is not you who has done this problem on the machine.
Absolutely, sir. And in fact, I also want to share one thing, like to the wider group, in fact, with you as well, that one of the challenge what we face, like with one of the industry, that they already have the sensors, right? But their sensors are not IoT enabled. They are not able to communicate to cloud or maybe their on-premise thing. So there the challenge comes at whether you want to replace that sensor, whether you want to take that cost, or so that kind of challenge also comes in place when we talk about this, data gathering and automizing the thing.
Very true. Very true.
There is a question from Mr. Ramraju. How far Indian industry I4 implemented?
Okay, I look at it like this. See, as you see from my presentation, I 4.0 has been given a wide high-tech publicity in terms of, if you ask anybody, they will talk, as I put a circle, what you will see in the internet, 3D printing, augmented reality, you will see all videos, everybody going around, which, creates some sort of a fear across the people in the smaller segment to see where do you have the IT resource. Now, IT resource we know is going to be expensive and it's not going to be consistent. Today, somebody is going to be there, tomorrow they will leave. So in my opinion, if this fear factor is to be removed and say that you can go with small things and be comfortable, then the implementation can, really become far-fetched. But today, it is not happening. It is happening only at very high levels. And it is not happening at MSME level, for the fear of thinking that it is something that which will only incur me in cost and not going to give me the returns. But that mindset is what we are trying to remove. And this is where if one or two of people wanted to have, they can always go back to PDPC and PMA to see if they can help in removing this fear factor of I 4.0 as something very high tech. Not at all. If this is removed, then you will have a lot of industries who are using this I 4.0.
There's a different question from Madurai. How can we translate this for a service startup?
Yes.
How can we translate this for a services startup?
Yes. Now, you see, if it is a service or in terms of manufacturing, the real issue is in terms of having data for decision making. Now, the basic idea of this, what we are talking is to use I 4.0 for data collection. Now, the moment you have good data, you can make good decision. So depending on what is the type of service, what you are looking at as a startup, probably you will need to configure first your data collection process. And that data collection process has to be made in such a way that it is, crafted data available. First of all, it is to be cost effective. And then, of course, comes the reliability, accuracy, fairness, and timely data. Once that configuration of data you're able to gather, that is a starting point for you to have this into the service startup.
Sir, I'm Ramaraju.
Very true, sir. Just to add here, the MSME problem is global, sir. Because I also, attend US things. Maybe 6 months back, I was with the MSME Association in, Chicago. I've seen the problem is not very different for this MSME industry globally. Because, see, for big companies, they have big pockets, as we say, or deep pockets. It's easy for them to try out. But for MSME, it is not easy, especially in the current scenario. If you have to put money from your pocket and it's going to drain you off, it's not going to be easy. So as you rightly said, it needs a lot of, understanding of where you implement. I shouldn't say this. If you say it is something like, many people who have had experience of ERP may not be, a higher percentage may not be really satisfactory. You're running it for, you have to run it. Not that you're running it and getting the best benefit out of it. The I 4.0 should not fall into the same category. You rightly said that is what, we should look at when MSMEs are using it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Krishna, this is Ravi Shankar.
Yes, sir.
So quick question. In a digitalization effort, if you look from an industry perspective at the companies doing this digitalization for you, and the other side, digitalization companies working with the manufacturing or the industries in the other side, what are the top two challenges that one failed to understand from the other side?
Okay. Yes, good point. Let me see if I can answer this. See, the problem is like this. From the manufacturing side, probably when I look at MSME, they I would not say all, but most of them are not very high tech savvy people. Similarly, on the high tech people or tech savvy people have not been on the shop floor most of the time. So there is a huge disconnect that what he wants to sell and how is it going to be sold. There is a big disconnect between both. So you need actually see, because IT people, I'm not blaming anybody for that reason, because when somebody from the technology side comes, he would like to push his technology for into the system. He is not worried about whether it's going to solve the problem or not. He has got a big technology. He wants to sell the big technology. But for a manufacturing guy, he is not interested in technology. He is interested in solution. So the problem is this guy needs to understand the solution. This guy needs to understand the technology, what is bringing the solution. This right match, I think in my experience, there are very less people who are able to mix and match this, which possibly is one of the reasons that why we are not seeing a big success. So this mix and match should happen. So you need to have, as I said in my C, you need to have a right consulting partner who has adequate domain experience and probably IT experience also. That can give you a lot of solution. Otherwise, the consultant will force his technology into your solution, for which you will not find a solution of your problem.
MSMEs, I have visited some substations also. What do you think? Because you have been there, and what do you think? What is the major difference that Indian industry should be like adopting from the US MSME industry for the betterment of our industry in Industry 4.0? Also, what do you think that there are certain kind of there are certain kind of differences between two organizations or between two industries that you have observed in US, and that should not be implemented, or that that we can't be implemented in India?
Okay, good question. This is my view. You see, the biggest problem, or I would say, in general, necessity is a mother of invention. Okay, in the Western side of the world, the labor cost is extremely high. Okay, so whether you like it or not, in order to make yourself competitive, you need to move into technology. Whether it is SME or MSME or big people, you are forced into technology. Say, for example, today you must be knowing that the Amazon shops in the US do not have anybody. Okay, there is no one in the supermarket. You just push your cart, you put whatever you want inside, the entire thing on the cart itself scans everything, and you walk out. There is nobody there, nobody to look at. See, the thing is, that level of automation is coming because of pressure of maybe cost and efficiency and things like this. Now that is forcing them into the automation side and then getting onto I 4.0 in much better, because it's a cost-effective implementation process. But for us here, we are still thinking that that is not going to be the case, that we still can live with a little bit of human intervention. But what we sacrifice in that is data that we don't understand. See, just because of better cost, or I wouldn't say lower, but I would say better in terms of per unit or per service hour cost, we think it is enough to have these people and sacrifice on the quality of data for decision making. That is where we should learn that we should look at it from a decision making perspective, where you get good data. That is where we should see. And although they may do it from a different perspective driven by the cost alone, but they are able to use that reason to get a good data. So this is where I think we need to mix and match and understand why we need it. We are not looking at the cost, we are looking at the good data for decision making. That is where we need to go into from the Indian perspective.
Yeah, thank you so much. The only thing behind this question is that we are moving towards making our cities as a smart city. So so what things that industry can contribute in this smart city development process, that is the main purpose behind asking this question. So how that we can grow vertically in our own industry, an organization can grow vertically, as well as